So now that we have our reload animations and all that set up, we want to do our fire animations. So that way when we shoot, we can actually see stuff going on. So to begin, let's go over to our firearm.cpp and we're going to go to our on bundles loaded. So we'll stay here for now. So what we're going to do is just like our reload where we broadcast it via a delegate, we're going to do the exact same thing, but for the shooting. So when we shoot, we basically are going to have some kind of delegate that just simply fires off. So that'll be in this fire function right here. And yeah, so we're going to have, here's basically where we're going to do our particles, all that kind of stuff. So anyhow, to begin, let's go to our firearm logic component.h and duplicate the on reload and change it to on fire. Likewise, let's do our f on fire. Now, we don't necessarily want to do it inside of this fire function. We more so kind of want to, I'll just kind of more or less show you what I mean. So if we go to our fire ability, you can see inside of the activate ability, we call fire. And in fire, we're actually just calling the various functions. We're not, technically doing much else. So one thing we can kind of do is more or less kind of like build a wrapper around this, but you'll kind of see where I'm going. So for now, inside of perform bullet trace, which we shouldn't be doing it in there, we're going to go ahead and take our on fire and execute if bound. And for now, we'll just pass in false because it's not a last round shot. Then to get rid of the annoying warning, will be executed just so we can assign the return. X, let's see, X, how do I spell it? Yeah, I can only spell it if I'm typing it for some reason. I can't actually spell it in my head. So this will be a temporary placeholder until we kind of get the effects and all that stuff going, like the audio, the case ejection, that kind of stuff. So in the firearm.cpp, we can go ahead and bind to it. So we grab the firearm logic component, grab the on fire, and bind U object, this for the object, and yeah, just we're going to make a new function called on fire. So void on fire, const bool be empty. Yeah, be empty fire. And of course, let's create a inline definition, which I again do not want. And here we at least have our fire logic. Well, our fire animation kind of placement. So we copy the on reload and paste it in here. Change out be empty fire like so. And now we just need to basically set the fire animations. So here where we have, our reloads, let's do the exact same thing for fire. So copy that entire chunk, paste it down, and let's do fire for the category. So here we have the fire section name, and we'll have the fire empty section name as well. Let's change it to fire empty and fire. Here we have the pawn fire montage, the firearm fire animation, and the firearm empty fire animation. And that's pretty much it for the naming. So now inside of the on fire function that we just made, we can make it return firearm empty fire animation, firearm fire animation. Basically any word that has the word fire in it, reload in it, we just replace reload with fire. And for the most part, that should be pretty much everything we have to actually do. Okay, so I don't see any more things about reloading, so I think we are good to go. Let's go ahead and close out of the editor, recompile, relaunch, and yeah, we should already have our fire animations pretty much good to go just from there. Now, we're not going to have any procedural recoil just yet. We have to call a function for that, but that's also something that is, very simple. We just want to make sure that this part is working because this is kind of the core of it. Okay, once we are back inside the editor, let's go to our data weapons 1911 and open the 1911. So we have our fire. Let's go ahead and we need to make the fire montage, but we already have the fire animations, so we can grab 1911 fire, 1911 fire empty, and just simply make the fire montages. So here we have our reload and our unequip and all that stuff. Let's make a new animation montage. Actually, there is technically no fire, is there? Okay, there is one. What do I do in here? Oh, I'm quite literally just squeezing the trigger. Okay, can I make a montage from here? Oh, you can. So let's create an montage, am underscore 1911 underscore fire. So here we have that. Let's open the fire animation because we need to make it additive. So mesh space, frame from this animation, frame 0. Go back to the montage, and we just want to set the preview because you can see the only thing moving is the finger, which is actually kind of funny. We want it to be the character 1911 idle, like before. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's just set the blend time to say 0 and 0 because the only movement is the little index finger there. So that should be our fire montage for the pawn. So let's set that. And let's just give it a try, see kind of what happens. So we left click. And there we go. You can see with every shot, the slide is coming back. However, we do not have the logic for the actual fire empty part. But let me check because I'm curious about the other fire animations in the other firearms. So the BAR. So we don't even have a fire. And that actually kind of makes some sense because we only would really want to see it for the semi-auto potentially. So I'm probably actually going to get rid of the actual fire animation side from the pawn and instead just use the firearm. So for now, let's actually we can just get rid of it. So fire section name, fire empty, and pawn fire montage. Let's get rid of those, but keep the firearm fire animation and firearm empty fire animation. So we can delete this. And the only thing we want to do in the shooter pawn component is call perform procedural recoil. And we can just leave the default values of 1 and close down the editor and restart. But first, I do want to go ahead and delete this fire montage. We'll just force delete, close, recompile, and relaunch. Once we are back inside of the editor, we have just our firearm fire animations. So that's good there. However, we should also now have some recoil, which I don't actually think I set inside the data asset. So let's see, procedural recoil settings. Let's open those. And we should have some basic recoil. So we do have these sample curves, and these are positive values. So for some reason, we're just not actually seemingly performing the recoil. So I'm not too overly concerned about getting that resolved just yet because we do have everything else kind of in place. So what I want to do next is we need to figure out a way to do the empty fire. So that'll be our focus. So for example, when I shoot, I want it to be just like it is now until I run out of ammo. So current magazine ammo hits 0. I want the slide to be locked to the rear. So that's going to be kind of more or less a addition in the firearm logic component. So it's going to be kind of similar to how we did the reload. So we'll recalculate it there and we pass it in and we replicate that actual, B is empty value. We can do something very similar over here as well. So in the pressed and release trigger, what we can do is when this replicates, we can just do a check and see if it is, well, empty. So for now, let's go ahead and go to our trigger pressed count. So we can go to the structure, add a new view property. It's going to be a bool, B is empty, and we'll set it to false by default. So now that we have that, we just need to set the value. So inside the firearm logic component, let's go to our fire ability. And here we are basically just calling form trace there, but we are calling the, let's see, there's activate ability. And here we are calling press trigger. So when we call press trigger, we basically just want to send kind of a more or less true or false as to whether or not we are empty. However, this will not affect us locally. So we're going to need some additions for that as well. So what I'm going to do just for the time being is here we have our on rep trigger count, which makes way to our fire function, which executes our on fire delegate. In our on fire delegate, what we want to do, instead of passing in just directly false, we want our trigger count, great autocomplete, dot B is empty. So this is going to be kind of our dictating factor. So that way, inside of on fire, if we are empty, we get the firearm empty fire animation. Otherwise, we get the normal fire. So basically all of our logic is already taken care of. The only thing we need to do is start kind of doing a little bit of a refactor for our fire ability with how we call the corresponding, fire functions and all of that. So that'll be relatively straightforward to do, but it is something that, well, we just need to go ahead and kind of start doing because we are kind of starting to wrap up the firing logic itself as well. So we need a nice clean way to spawn the particle effects, audio, that kind of stuff. And this includes replicating whether or not the last shot should be a empty shot. So anyways, that is going to be all for this video, and I will see you in the next one. If you like what I'm doing and you want to help support me, you can find a link to my Patreon in the description below, where you can also get early access to this entire series.